So with that, looking at the fact that
You're good.
I've got plenty of time for questions.
14 minutes.
Boss says 14 minutes. I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Something that's very important to me, because I come from a very small community, is what are your thoughts on government centralization as epitomized by the recent school consolidation laws?
The question is, what are my feelings about school consolidation and the recent laws? We had a good idea, and we kind of dropped it in midair. The biggest mistake that we made is we decided that Washington County needed to live by the same rules as Cumberland County. And that doesn't make any sense. We have 230 school superintendents in the state of Maine. We probably need, I don't know, if you put 2 in some of the more populous counties and 1 in the rest, you could get away with 24. And I'm not trying to get rid of those other 200 superintendents, but we really started down a road, but politically, we got stuck in the mire of politics of keeping people in jobs, and then instead of actually getting rid of them, we sunsetted them, so they're still going to be around for 5 years, and we didn't end up saving any money. But we lacked a little bit of the intestinal fortitude to really tackle the problem. And the fact is that maybe a couple hundred superintendents need to go back to being teachers. The fact is that we maybe need, instead of bringing another panel together of 30 people to come up with a plan that supposedly makes everybody happy, is get 5 or 6 people together in a closed room and come up with a plan that's actually going to work for the people of the state of Maine, then take it to the legislature and sell it and suffer the consequences. Again, the analogy might be similar to saying, I have 10 fingers, I need to lose 1, okay? Don't want to be too graphic, okay? What I will do is I will cut the tips off of all 10, or I will cut off 1. Yeah, it may be an overly dramatic way of putting it, but at the end of the day, rather than make minor little changes, it would be perhaps better to just, you know, surgically, kindly as you could remove 1 finger. Anything else?
Do you really feel that state government can be run as a business? And if so, what would be the one thing that you would institute if you were elected government?
I don't think state government can be run as a business the way I'm accustomed to understanding business. Okay? I do think state government can adhere to modern management business production techniques, which is different than saying it's a business, which means evaluations, productivity, quality assurance are all components of government. But we're not going to be talking about profit. Our profit would be measured in how happy you are with the result that you got by doing business with the government.
You mentioned something about managing a baseball team, or the analogy of Kevin Euclid, Michael on the bench. I'm a very strong supporter of the best player should play. So you were making this analogy about education and the teachers. You're saying we might be chasing out a lot of these young, enthusiastic teachers in favor of somebody just because they've been there longer, even though they're not as good a teacher. So if we give this power to superintendents, what kind of checks and balances are there going to be to ensure that this superintendent isn't A, abusing the power of being able to get rid of who they want, and B, how are they going to assess the abilities of these teachers?
Well, that's a great question, and that goes back to actually how you would run a business. Okay? If you were running a business and you had an employee, they would have performance standards. And if they didn't meet those performance standards, you would let them go for non-performance. If the superintendent isn't producing the test results for the school system at the end of every year of standardized testing, and you agree, and the superintendents would all agree on what standardized testing they would be willing to work towards. If they are failing, you fire them. You just say, I'm sorry, I need another superintendent. Because if he's not or she's not making the right choices about who to keep working for them, then they need to go. But if you don't give that power, if you don't give that authority You handcuff the very person that you've hired to actually do the job. At some point, checks and balances can become either a burden or a blessing. The check and the balance in education is hire the superintendent. If they do a lousy job with the people that they hire and fire them. You'll hire me 4 years from now, if I'm not doing a good job, the camera's on, fire mine down the road, okay? And pick the new guy. The same thing with your legislators. After every 2 years, if you don't like the job that they've been doing, why are you re-electing them? Elect somebody new. That's where the error gets made. And that's where the power comes from. You have all the power. When we artificially keep people in their jobs for life, they lack motivation, they know they don't have to do anything, and they certainly don't have to listen to you.
What's your impression of LD 1495 from the last year, from like May of last year? What was your impression of that bill?
It is a hand that I have been fortunate.
1495, tell everybody what 1495 is.
It's the bill where they cut the income tax rate
And
from
change the sales tax.
Yeah, there is sales tax, meals tax, pretty much every other tax in the state.
Here's the problem. I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, but I can tell you that 83% of the people in the state of Maine have income tax as the number one objection that they have to living here. And the number two objection that they have to living here is property tax. So the question is, the ballot, we used to pay 8.5%. Now we're going to pay 6.5%. And then we've got this sort of amorphous sales tax, question mark, which is filled with all sorts of new taxes that you'll pay on this or that or the other thing, and mortgage deductions, and you got to have a textbook and hire an accountant to try to figure it out. But the impression that's going to be left in everybody's mind is that if you repeal the reduction, what you're actually doing is increasing the tax that people hate the most from 6.5% to 8.5%. I've already been dealt that hand. I can do nothing to change the fact that that's going to be on the ballot. I wish it wasn't. 1495 has done nothing more in my mind than rearrange the deck chairs. Now, because I'm a Republican and I want to support the platform of the Republican Party, I can only say that I'm deeply troubled that I very, very reluctantly support the repeal. Because the most conservative newspaper in America, the Wall Street Journal, referred to what the Democratic House and Senate passed as Maine's miracle. Now, they didn't read the fine print. If you read the fine print, you hire an accountant, you'll find out that the average Mainer probably doesn't make out any better with the change. It's mostly optics. And for a lot of people, you lose your mortgage deduction, you may end up paying more in tax. But the optics are such that it looks like we did the right thing. So if you're a candidate, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. You can have a half-an-hour discussion about the intricacies of the bill to explain to somebody how when they get their car fixed or their washing machine fixed or they lost their mortgage deduction, that the combined impact of that is going to be more than they're going to save in their income tax. Or you can tell them the tax that they hate the most is going up from 6.5% to 8.5%. It's kind of, it's akin to that horrible question that gets asked, you know, which is, have you stopped beating up your brother? And I went, I don't beat up my brother, so how could I stop? You know, politicians often get asked questions that they can't answer. Somebody asked me, he said, Mr. Otten, give us a one-word answer on yes or no on the following question. Would you cut taxes or close the University of Southern Maine? I mean, honestly, it was a question I was asked. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question. If those are the choices that we're going to give ourselves, we're not giving ourselves the ability to use what God gave us, which is our brains, which is to solve problems with other than yes or no answers.